Hello, my name's Jerry Graves. I'm CDL Training Manager here at Sysco Portland. Today we're going to demonstrate how to do a pre-trip inspection as it's outlined in the CDL Training Manual. During this inspection, I need you to point to or touch each item you're inspecting and fully explain what you're inspecting each item for. We're going to begin the inspection by inspecting what we call the 3 L's for lights, leaks, and leans. All right? So now we're going to inspect the 3 L's, starting with our lights. Up top, I have 5 clearance lights. They're all securely mounted. They're not cracked, broken, or missing. They should be amber in color and free of moisture. I have my 2 headlight assemblies, which include my high beams, my low beams, my turn signals, 4-way indicators, and a side marker. They are all securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. They should be free of moisture. Headlights be clear in color. Turn signal, 4-ways, and side marker are all amber in color. Next, I'm going to check the posture of the vehicle. Is it leaning to one side or the other? Which could indicate a tire inflation issue. Could be a problem with the suspension. Or maybe the load has shifted. Or maybe the ground is kind of unstable for the vehicle. Those things we're going to look for as we are approaching the vehicle. Lastly, we're going to look underneath the vehicle. Check for any signs of any leaks, such as coolant, oil, power steering, diesel. Those are some clues as we get ready to pop the hood and get into it a little deeper. Right as we've opened up the engine compartment, we're going to begin here on the passenger side. And over here, we're going to start with a general overview, checking all of our hoses and wires on this side, ensuring that all of our lines are securely mounted. They're fastened at each end with the proper fittings, no loose clamps, no hoses, they have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. There's no signs of leaks, whether it be audible or visual. Any electrical lines, I see no signs of any kind of cracked, frayed, or exposed wires. On this side of the engine, on this truck, I would inspect my alternator. I'm going to ensure that alternator is securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken, or missing. The electrical leads are securely connected. There's no signs of corrosion, no cut, exposed, or frayed wires. This alternator is belt driven. Gotta identify whether it's belt driven. So this one is belt driven. The belt itself is securely mounted. It's not cut, torn, frayed, or missing. And it has no more than 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of play in the belt. At this point, I'm going to move over to the driver's side of the vehicle and inspect items over there. Over here on the driver's side, once again, I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side. I'm going to inspect all my hoses, all my electrical lines on this side of the engine, ensuring that they are all securely mounted. They're securely mounted on each end with clamps and fittings. No signs of any leaks, whether it be audible or visual. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts. No cut or frayed or exposed wires on any electrical lines. And from that point now, I'm going to check all my fluids, starting with my coolant reservoir. My coolant reservoir, it is securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken, or missing. Cap is hand tight. The level is at appropriate level. It's above the cold minimum. And there's no signs of any leaks. All the hose, the lines going in and out of it are free of any abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and any leaks. I have my power steering fluid reservoir, which is securely mounted. It is not cracked, broken, or missing. Cap is hand tight. I would check that the fluid level, again, is at an appropriate level. It's at a cold minimum and not above the maximum. All my lines in and out are securely fastened. All clamps and fittings are intact, not missing. No abrasion, bulges, cuts, no leaks. I have my oil, okay? Here's where I fill my oil. Here's where I check the oil. My cap is securely fastened, hand tight, no signs of leaks. To check the oil, I would pull out the dipstick, wipe it, reinsert it, pull it out, and ensure it's at an appropriate level between the add and the full. Right, so that checks all my fluid levels. Next, I'm going to check my water pump. How do I know it's a water pump? Well, we're going to check and follow lines out of the coolant reservoir, as well as following lines from the radiator, which bring me right here to this. So it helps me identify that in fact is my water pump. Got to identify, is it belt or gear driven? It is a belt driven water pump. So my water pump is securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken, or missing. There's no signs of any leaks. As I mentioned, it is belt driven. My belt itself is securely fastened, not cut, torn, frayed, or missing. And it has no more than 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of play on the belt. Next, I need to identify my power steering pump as well as my air compressor. They are both back here securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. They're both gear driven. Again, I'm going to ensure there's no audible or visual leaks on those devices as well. Okay. Next, I'm going to start with my steering components, starting with my steering column. My steering column, it is securely mounted with U-joints, top and bottom. It's not cracked, broken, or bent. It should have no more than 10 degrees of play. The U-joints should be properly greased and free of debris. It is connected to my gearbox, my power steering gearbox and hoses. They're all securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. No signs of any leaks. Next, we're going to get into our 3-piece steering linkage. So my 3-piece steering linkage includes my pitman arm, my drag link, my upper and lower control arm, and my tie rod. They are all securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent. They're securely mounted with castle nut and cotter keys on both ends. Again, they're not cracked, broken, or bent. That concludes all my steering components. So next, we're going to inspect all of our suspension components on this truck. I have my front and my rear spring hangers, which are securely mounted. They're not cracked, broken, or bent, or missing. No missing hardware. My leaf springs are securely mounted. They're not cracked, broken, bent. There's no signs of shifting or scissoring. No illegal welds. And they are securely attached to the axle using U-bolts. The U-bolts are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent, or missing. No signs of looseness, such as shiny metal or metal shavings. And finally, I have my shock absorber, which is securely mounted top and bottom. It's not cracked, broken, or bent, or leaking. And my bushings are intact and not damaged and weather rotted. That includes my suspension components. Next, we get into the brakes. So with the brakes, we're going to start with the airline. My airline is securely mounted on both ends. It's not cracked or no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. It's securely mounted with all its fittings. None of them are missing. Again, I hear no air leaks as well in the airline. My airline leads right into my brake chamber. My brake chamber is securely mounted with the C-clamp. It's not cracked, broken, or missing. There's no missing hardware. Again, there's no audible leaks. Coming out of that is my push rod and slack adjuster, which is securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken, or missing. They are secured with clevis pins and cotter keys. And when I check the adjustments on these, when I pull this by hand, I should have no more than 1 inch of play by hand. Then I have my brake linings and brake drums. They're securely mounted. They're not cracked, broken, or missing. No illegal welds. The linings should not be dangerously worn thin, and more specifically, you should have no less than 1/4 of an inch of depth in the center of the linings. And they both should be free of any debris such as oil or grease. Next, we're going to inspect our tires and our rims. Starting with the tires, I'm going to inspect the inside and the outside sidewalls, ensuring they're free of any abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They should be seated to the rim properly, free of any debris, and no leaks. The top of my tire as well, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. I should have nice, even wear. And I want to make sure I have at least 4 30-seconds of tread depth in each measurable groove. Keep in mind with a steer tire, I cannot have recapped or regrooved tires. They must be original tires. Next, I'm going to inspect the rim, ensuring it's not cracked, broken, or bent. No illegal welds. It's secured with these lug nuts. All my lug nuts should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. No signs of looseness. On a steel wheel like this, There'll be signs of rust trails or maybe out around holes or shiny metal. If it's over tightened, there may be some spidering. And if I have a loose lug, I'm going to tighten it with a torque wrench. Then my hub seal, it is securely mounted. It should be not cracked, broken, or leaking. I'm going to ensure it's filled to an appropriate level, above the add, below the full. Lastly, I got my valve stem and cap, ensuring that it is securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. This is where I'm going to check my tire inflation, ensuring I have proper inflation based on the tire manufacturer's recommendation. Now that we've completed the engine compartment, we've secured a hood, we're going to start on the driver's side of the vehicle. I'm going to inspect my side marker light, ensuring it is securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken, bent, or missing. It should be amber in color. It should be free of moisture. Again, this functions as a turn signal, a four-way indicator, and a marker light. I have my mirror and bracket, which are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, bent, or missing. We'll inspect the glass from our inside in-cab inspection. The door and the window glass should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. The door handle should open and close the door properly. The door is secured with hinges, which support the weight of the door. No missing hardware. Again, they're all securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. My door seals, weather seals, are all securely mounted. Not cut, torn, frayed, or missing. They'll keep the weather out. I have my steps going into the truck, which are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. They should be free of debris and can support the driver's weight. As we continue down the driver's side, the back of the cab, we have our DEF tank and our fuel tanks. They're both securely mounted, not cracked, broken, no signs of leaks. Secured with these straps, which are called saddle straps. They have these rubber insulators, so we don't have metal on metal. And again, they're securely fastened to the frame, top and bottom. No signs of shifting. Caps are on hand tight. Again, no signs of leaks. Right. Coming to the back, I have my air lines. My air lines and electrical lines are securely mounted. There are no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. There are no sounds of any air leaks coming from either of the air lines. They're fastened on the tractor side as well as the trailer side. On the trailer side, my glide hand connectors are securely mounted. They're seated properly. My gaskets are intact. They're not weathered or missing. Again, I hear no air leaks. My electrical air line is securely mounted. It's mounted on the trailer and the tractor side. Not cracked, or no cut, frayed, or exposed wires. And they should be not dragging on the catwalk themselves. Speaking of the catwalk, we have the catwalk, which is securely mounted. It should be not cracked, broken, or missing, and it should be free of debris. Here we can also see our exhaust. This is a vertical exhaust system, and our DEF system, securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. No signs of leaks, such as black soot. If you see an exhaust leak, you want to report that and get that taken care of immediately. Right. Checking our frame and cross members. They should all be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent. No missing nuts or bolts. Again, no visible signs of damage, cracks, illegal welds, anything of that nature on the frame or the cross members. Also, we have our drive line, our drive shaft. It should be securely mounted. Can't see it unless you're really underneath here, but again, it should be mounted front and rear. It should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent. Should be fastened at each end with U-joints. They should be free of debris and properly greased as well. Next, you'll see the torque arm, which is securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken, or bent. It's that rod that runs from the top of the differential over here to the attached to the side of the frame. Now at this point, we're going to start by inspecting our brakes on our drive axle. Here we have two air lines. The reason we have two air lines is because we have two brake chambers, one for the surface brakes, one for the spring brakes. So my air lines, they are securely mounted. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts. It has fittings on both ends, which are not missing, and there are no audible air leaks. Leads right down into my 2 brake chambers, which are securely mounted. They're mounted with C-clamps. Again, they're not cracked, broken, bent, not missing. Again, there's no audible leaks. That's a little hard to see from this angle, but again, down there after that, coming out of the brake chambers, you have your push rod and slack adjuster. They are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent. They should be secured together with clevis pin and cotter keys. And again, we're going to check the adjustment. With the brakes released, I should have no more than 1 inch of play by hand. Now on here, because we have spring brakes, if the brakes are applied, a visual inspection you can make is looking for a 90-degree angle on the push rod and slack adjuster. That would give you a good visual reference that the brakes are in proper adjustment. And then from there, we would go in and check our brake drum and linings, ensuring that they are securely mounted. They are not cracked, broken, or bent. No illegal welds. The linings are not worn dangerously thin. Again, being more specific, there's no less than 1/4 of an inch of lining depth at the center of the linings, and they both should be free of any debris such as oil or grease. So now we'll talk about our suspension. We have our front and rear spring hangers, which are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing, no missing hardware. Leaf spring, securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent, no illegal welds. Again, there'd be no signs of scissoring or shifting of the leaves. They should be secured on the axle with the 2 U-bolts, which should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. No signs of looseness, such as shiny metal or metal shavings. And then we have our shock absorber, which should again be securely mounted, top and bottom. Not cracked, broken, or bent. There are no signs of leaks. And bushing should be intact, not weathered or missing. And finally, on the suspension, as we move around here, one thing that's different on the drive axle versus the steer axles, we have an airbag. We have an air ride suspension, so making sure my air ride suspension, the airbag, securely mounted, top and bottom. No missing hardware. Airbags themselves, free of abrasions, bulges, or cuts. And there are no air leaks. That covers my suspension. After the brakes, we're going to inspect the tires. We have dual tires. We've got an inner and outer tire. And our rims. We're going to inspect them much like we did on the front. There are little differences. Again, we're going to check our inner and outer sidewalls on both tires. Again, ensuring there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They're seated properly to the rim. There's no debris, no air leaks. Same thing on top of both tires. They should both be evenly worn. No signs of abrasions, bulges, or cuts. And I should have no less than 2/30 seconds of tread depth in each measurable groove on both tires. Again, these now can be recaps, unlike the front, which cannot. All right, so that covers the tires. And we have our rim. Our inner and outer rims are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent. No illegal welds. They're secured with lug nuts, much like on the front. Lug nuts are not cracked, broken, or missing. No signs of looseness. Again, this is a steel wheel again. Signs of looseness on a steel wheel be rust trails, outer round holes, maybe shiny metal. And over tightening, it would be spidering. And if I have a loose lug nut, I'm going to tighten it with a torque wrench. Now what you are seeing is a little different here. We had a hub seal on the front. This is an axle seal on these axles. On the drive axles, these are enclosed axle seals. You cannot see the fluid levels. But we're going to ensure that they're securely mounted, not cracked, broken, bent. No signs of leaks, no missing hardware, no missing lug nuts. All right? And then we have our valve stems. Valve stems and caps will have an inner and an outer. They should be offset from one another, ensuring that they, just like up front, they're securely mounted. They're not cracked, broken, or bent, or missing. The caps are in place. Again, this is where we're going to check the tire inflation on both tires, ensuring it's at a proper inflation level based on the manufacturer's recommendations. Last thing we're going to do, and I'm going to grab the camera so you can see, we're going to talk about the bud spacing. So here again on the drive tires, and then the same be on the trailers, we have dual tires and rims. So we call these bud wheels, and they create what's called a bud space. So when we inspect this bud space, this is what we should be seeing. They should be seated together properly. See no damage, no cracks, no welds. Again, no space in there. There should be evenly spaced between each tire. Tires shouldn't be touching or rubbing. And we should be free of any debris like rocks, broken tire chains, things of that nature. All right? So that's your bud spacing. So here we're going to inspect our coupling components. We're going to start with the apron. The apron is the flat part of the trailer that sits on top of the skid plate. My apron should be securely mounted, not cracked, not bent, not damaged anywhere. And attached to that, which we can't see right now, would be our kingpin. The kingpin should be attached to the apron. And it should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent, and it should be properly greased. And here you go. Here's a kingpin, again, attached to the apron. It's not cracked, broken, or bent. And that center part is what we call the shank. That's where our locking jaws are going to be locked around that shank of the kingpin. All right, continuing on with our coupling components. We talked about the apron. We saw the kingpin. They sit on the fifth wheel skid plate. The skid plate is attached to the platform, and it's secured with that pivot or with that nut and cotter key there, the bolt and cotter pin. So my skid plate should be securely mounted to the platform, not cracked, broken, or bent. Should be properly greased. And as we can see, we should see no daylight between the apron and that skid plate. I mentioned the bolt and the cotter key, which holds that in place on the platform. My release handle should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent. It should be in an inward lock position. All right. My platform is attached to the tractor frame here on the slide rail. It is securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. No missing hardware. No missing nuts and bolts. Again, this is a sliding fifth wheel. So my slider is securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken, or bent. My locking pins should be in a locked, closed position. There's no missing hardware, no missing nuts and bolts. And it's secured to the frame with mounting bolts, which are all securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. That covers the coupling components on this end. We're going to go behind the tractor and look at the locking jaws once again, make sure they're locked around the shank of the kingpin, as well as, again, looking to make sure we have no daylight between our apron and skid plate. So now that we're underneath, behind the tractor, we get a good visual of the locking jaws. We can see that they're fully locked around that shank of the kingpin. Remember the shank I showed you earlier? So we'll make sure it's fully engaged around the shank of the kingpin. Again, once again, I'm seeing I have no daylight between my apron and my skid plate. Now, once I'm back here as well, let me inspect my lights on the rear of the tractor. I have 2 red lights. Those are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. They're free of moisture. Those have 4 functions. Those would be my tail lights, my brake lights, my turn signals, my 4-way indicators. And as well as I have my rear backup light, which is clear in color, and it's securely mounted, not cracked, broken, missing. All those lights, again, are free of moisture. I would also, on back here, inspect my mud flap and brackets, ensuring that they are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. They shouldn't be dragging on the ground. I should have no more than 10 inches of clearance from the ground to the bottom of the mud flap. One thing we don't see on these, but this should be on the tractor mud flaps, they are required. If you're bobtailing, is DOT, 100% DOT reflective tape across the mud flap. Okay, so that concludes the back of the tractor and our coupling. So we're going to get out and we're going to start inspecting the trailer. So earlier we already inspected all of our air lines and electrical connections to the trailers. Now we're going to start with the front of the trailer, which is the bulkhead. For the sake of preparing you for the skills test. We're not going to worry about the refrigeration unit and everything else. You'll get into that in more depth with your trainer once you start working as delivery partner. For sake of testing, we're going to inspect the bulkhead. Ensuring the bulkhead is securely mounted. There's no missing rivets, no holes, no damage, nothing to affect the integrity of the temperature control and the freight inside the trailer. And on top, we're going to ensure we have a marker light, which is secure, a clearance light, which should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. Should be amber in color and free of moisture. And then next, we're going to go down and look at the side of the trailer. Once again, just like on the bulkhead of the trailer, on the side, we're going to inspect the overall condition of the side of the trailer, looking for any damage, any holes, any missing rivets, anything that would allow weather to affect the integrity of our trailer, the temperature, and our freight. So we want to make sure it's clear of all that damage. We want to ensure we have at least 50% DOT reflective tape coverage along the length of the trailer. When we inspect the frame rail, again, inspecting it for any damage. Make sure it's not cracked, not bent, no missing rivets along the way. These rivets are really important because they support our cross members underneath. We're going to inspect those cross members in the floor of the trailer, ensuring that they are securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or bent in any way. Anything that would affect the strength, integrity of the trailer so it doesn't collapse on us. And then, again, no holes to affect the temperature control in our product inside the trailer as well. Then we have our landing gear. Our landing gear includes the landing gear frame, the leg, the feet, our cross members, and our crank handle. They should all be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. The leg should be fully raised in a travel position. The feet should be free of debris, and our handle should be in a stowed travel position. Again, we're not going to worry, again, for the sake of CDL testing, we're not going to worry about inspecting the reefer tank. In real life, you're going to continue that in your inspection, just like we inspected our fuel tank up there. As I continue down to the rear portion of the trailer, I'm going to stop and inspect my side marker light. This is a marker light, turn signal, and four-way indicator. It is securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. It should be amber in color and free of moisture. Now do note some trailers, it may not act as a marker light. It may just be a turn signal or four-way. But again, it'll be amber in color. We'll continue down all the way. And at this point, we're now going to inspect all of our components underneath the trailer, much like we did on the drive axles and the steer axle. Now, as we come to the back of the trailer, I'm going to start by inspecting these air lines, ensuring that they're all securely mounted, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, no missing fittings on either end, and again, no audible air leaks. And they are stowed properly and not dragging too low to the ground, so they don't get snagged up and cause a catastrophic air loss. Then I'm going to inspect my slider frame. This trailer is equipped with a says sliding tandems, ensuring that sliding rail is securely mounted, not cracked, broken, bent, no broken or illegal welds. My locking pins are in a closed lock position. These are air activated, and for your information, if you do have to slide your tandems, make sure you have at least 100 pounds of air pressure in your air supply system. If you don't have adequate air supply, those pins will not release. Okay. Next, we will go in and inspect our brakes, and then our suspension, and then our tires and rims. So much like on our tractor with the air brakes, we'll start with our air lines, inspecting our two air lines, one for the service brake chamber and one for the spring brakes. Make sure those lines are securely mounted, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. All fittings are intact and not missing, and there are no leaks. And then on the brake chambers themselves, ensuring they are securely mounted with C-clamps, not cracked, broken, bent, no audible leaks. And then out of there, we would check our push rods and slack adjusters, ensuring that they are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, bent, or missing, secured with clevis pin and cotter keys. Again, ensuring With the brakes released, we have no more than 1 inch of play by hand, and as we can see here with the brakes applied, we should have about a 90-degree angle. Right. And from there, we will check our brake drum and linings, ensure that they are both securely mounted, not cracked, broken, bent, no illegal welds on the drum, linings are not worn dangerously thin. More specifically, no less than a 1/4 inch of lining, and they both should be free of any debris such as oil or grease. Next, we'll check our suspension. We have an air ride suspension and shocks. Make sure our air ride, our airbags, are securely mounted top and bottom. They are not cracked, broken, bent, no missing hardware. The bags have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no leaks. Our shocks, securely mounted top and bottom. Not cracked, broken, or bent, no leaks. Bushings are not worn, weathered, or missing. Next, we're going to inspect our tires. We've got our dual tires. We're going to inspect the inner and outer sidewalls on both the inner tire and outer tire. We're going to ensure that these are free of any abrasions, bulges, or cuts, that they are seated properly to the rim, they're free of debris, and there's no leaks. Top of the tires on both tires should have even wear. That should have no less than 2/32 of tread depth in each measurable groove. The rims should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent, no illegal welds. They're secured with the lug nuts. All the lug nuts should be securely mounted, not cracked, not broken. They shouldn't be missing. Signs of looseness, again, on a steel wheel. The rust trails, shiny metal, out around holes, things of that nature. Over-tightened lugs can show spidering. And again, if I have a loose lug, I'm going to tighten it with a torque wrench. My hub seal, it is securely mounted, not cracked, broken, not leaking, no missing hardware. I'm going to ensure it is at appropriate level. It's above the add line, below the full. Then finally on these, we have these air balancing systems for our valve stems. So here, I'll make sure these lines are securely mounted, no missing fittings on either end. There's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, no leaks. And then as far as checking the air pressure, on this one, we do have these caps we can remove to use a tire pressure gauge. But also, I'll show you on the front of the trailer how you can know if we have a tire that has an inflation issue. We have dual tires and rims. So we call these bud wheels, and they create what's called a bud space. So when we inspect this bud space, this is what we should be seeing. They should be seated together properly. See no damage, no cracks, no welds. Again, no space in there. There should be evenly spaced between each tire. Tires shouldn't be touching or rubbing. And we should be free of any debris like rocks, broken tire chains, things of that nature. All right? So that's your bud spacing. Right there on the trailer, we have that light indicator. It'll be white. If it comes on, that's going to tell you that you are having a tire inflation issue. It's not uncommon, especially first thing in the morning, especially in cold weather, for that light to come on briefly. It may be a few minutes. It might take up to 5 or 10 minutes or so. Just depends on how many tires are needing inflation adjustments. If it comes on and stays on, you need to see the mechanics and get that resolved before you leave. And continuing here on the back of the trailer, we have our ABS light. Again, this light is amber in color. Again, it should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. It should be free of moisture. This light should only illuminate when the ABS is activated. When you start the truck, it should illuminate and it should go out. It should not stay on. If it does stay on, you've got an issue. You should talk to the mechanics about it. And then we have our rear red marker light. Securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. Again, red in color, free of moisture. On the rear of the trailer, we're going to start from the top and work our way down. So on the top, I have my 5 clearance lights. They should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. They are red in color. The 2 outer ones also operate as tail lights, brake lights, turn signals, and 4-ways. Again, they're red in color, securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing, free of moisture. I have my door. My roll-up door should be securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent. It should be in a closed, locked position. Cable should be intact, not torn, frayed, or missing. Ensure the door opens and closes properly. Again, it's in a closed, locked position. Here our tailgate's down. We want to make sure that it would be stowed in a travel position. Keep fingers and everything away as you raise and secure the tailgate. This older model has a catch here to lock it in place. We're going to raise it up right to that point and lower it back down in. Now it's in a closed, locked travel position. Securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. It has 100% DOT reflective tape. We can see our the bottom rear tail lights, again, red in color. They're all securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. They operate again, tail lights, brake lights, turn signals, four-way indicators. Red in color, free of moisture. We have our DOT bumper, which is securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or bent. Again, should have 100% DOT reflective tape. And we have our permanent registered trailer license plate. Last thing we'll check is our mud flaps. And here on the mud flaps, we're going to inspect our bracket and the mud flaps themselves to ensure that they are securely mounted. The bracket's not cracked, broken, bent, or missing. Mud flaps it's securely mounted. It's not cut, torn, frayed, or missing. And it should not be more than 10 inches off the ground. DOT reflective tape is not required on the trailer mud flaps as we have it on the back of the trailer. Again, they are required on the mud flaps on the tractor. All right, for the tailgate, our controls are right here for raising and lowering and opening and closing the tailgate. Again, right now it's in a closed travel position. Remember the safety latch, so I'm gonna have to raise it up slightly. And then now I can open it up by holding the up switch and the open switch together. Then I can lower it down. This gives us a chance again to do our pre-trip inspection on the lift gate as well, ensuring that our chains are securely mounted. There's no damage or any issues with that. It's securing and holding the tailgate properly. Then it opens, we can see the open closes properly. We also have our safety lip here for when we, my bad. There we go. Our safety lip so that our equipment doesn't run off of the lift gate. When it's time to put the lift gate away, again, we'll raise it up and hit the close button. And again, we're going to raise it up, keeping our fingers and stuff out of the way. There we go, just past the catch point. Lock it in there. And we are now fully stowed once again in a closed lock travel position. Now, once we've completed the rear of the trailer, we come down the right side. You're just going to point out what's unique to this side of the trailer. In this case, we have our access doors to the freezer and the cooler in the trailer. So again, just point out that these doors are securely mounted with hinges, which will support the weight of the door. The weather seals, the door seals around there are intact, not weathered or missing. We'll have good integrity when it comes to temperature control. The door should be in a closed, locked travel position. Our securement hook and latch are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. And our grab handle for when we go up and in and out of there using our ramp and stuff, it is securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing. And that's all you need to point out on this side of the trailer. At this point, we will go in and conduct our in-cab inspection.
Now I'm going to conduct my in-cab pre-trip inspection. So first I will start with my safety equipment, my seat belt, is properly mounted and secure. It's not cut, worn, or frayed. The latch latches, unlatches, and relatches securely. Next, I will start with my emergency safety equipment. So my fire extinguisher is properly mounted and secure on the driver's side floor. It is not cracked, bent, or broken. There are no visible or audible leaks. It has a full charge with the needle in the green. It is not expired. It is a minimum type 5 BC fire extinguisher, and the safety pin is intact, not bent or damaged, and in place. Next, I will inspect my 3 DOT reflective triangles. Make sure those are not cracked, damaged, or bent, and they are fully operational and clean. Then I will inspect my spare fuses, make sure I have the proper amps for this vehicle, which is 5 through 30. Then I will go ahead and inspect my, turn the key to the on position. When I do so, I'm looking for my DEF light and my ABS light on my dashboard to illuminate and go out, as well as the ABS light on my trailer to illuminate and go out. So turning the key to the on position. On the trailer, it went out. On the tractor dash, it went out. Now I'm going to do a safe start, which consists of my parking brakes applied, the shifter in neutral, my hand on the steering wheel, and my foot above the brake pedal. Once I start the engine, I'm going to be looking for my oil pressure gauge to rise to normal oil pressure within 10 seconds of starting the engine. So starting the engine. All right, my oil pressure rose to normal pressure within 10 seconds of starting my engine. Next, I'm going to look for my fuel gauge and my diesel exhaust fluid gauge. Make sure I have sufficient fuel for my trip, and my DEF tank is a minimum of 1/8 of a tank. Then I'm going to check my voltmeter. Make sure that is reading between 12 and 15 volts. Currently, it's reading 14.2. Then I'm going to check my primary and secondary air tanks gauges and make sure those are steadily rising until the governor cuts off, which normal will happen between 120 and 140 psi. For this tractor, it happens about 125 psi. Then I will check my engine temperature gauge, which will slowly rise to a normal operating temperature of 170 to 210 degrees. Then I will check my lighting indicators. So my low beams work, my high beams work, my left turn signal works, and my right turn signal works. My four-way flashers work. Then I will inspect my city horn, works. My air horn works. And I will inspect my mirrors, make sure they are properly mounted and secure. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. They are properly adjusted. They are clean and free of anything obstructing my view. Then I will inspect my windshield and the seal around it, make sure it is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, chipped, or damaged. The seals are intact. They're not dry, rotted, worn, or missing. Then I'll inspect my wipers, as well as my wiper blades. Make sure they are properly mounted and secure. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. The rubber on the blades are not worn, rotted, or missing, and they are pressed firmly against the windshield. From there, I will inspect the wiper blade function and the wiper fluid, ensuring they operate correctly, and clean my windshield properly. And then I will inspect my heater and my defroster. My defroster works. My heaters work. Now I will test my parking brakes and service brakes. So first I will test my tractor parking brake by pushing in my trailer brakes, shifting into drive, and pressing on the accelerator, and when I do so, I will feel and see a slight rise in the mirrors. So testing my tractor parking brakes. My tractor brakes hold, so I will shift back into neutral. Then I will test my trailer parking brakes by pushing in the tractor brakes, having my trailer brakes out, pushing in the tractor brakes, shifting to drive, and pressing on the accelerator. And when I do so, I will see and feel a slight rise in the mirrors. So drive, my trailer brakes hold, so I will shift back to neutral. Next, I will test my service brakes by pushing in both of my parking brakes for the trailer and tractor, shifting into drive and pressing on the accelerator. When I do, I will accelerate to a maximum of 5 miles per hour, have my hands at a 9 and 3 position on the steering wheel, slightly holding it, and I don't want to feel any veer to the left or right. So my service brakes work, so I will shift back to neutral, and there I did not feel any veer to the right or left, indicating my slack adjusters are in alignment. So next, I am ready to start my LAB tests. In order to do so, I will need to chock the wheels. To conduct my test, I will need to be at full pressure in the air tanks, so I will do another safe start. Parking brakes applied, shifter in neutral, hand on the steering wheel and foot above the brake pedal. To conduct my test, I will need to push in both of my parking brakes and wait for the governor to cut off, which will happen between 120 to 140 psi. And again, for this vehicle, it happens about 125. So right now, I'm watching my pressure gauge getting close to 125, and I'm also listening for the governor to cut off. All right, that was the governor cutoff. Now I have full pressure. I will turn the key off, pull out my stopwatch, turn the key back to the on position. Now I will start my leakage test. To conduct my leakage test, I will press firmly on the brake pedal and hold it. I will watch the air gauge, and once the air settles in the lines, I will start my 1 minute timer. And in that 1 minute for a combination vehicle, I should not lose more than 4 psi. So I'm ready to start the test. All right, the air has settled. Start my timer. In this 1 minute, I have my interior noises off and my windows open so I can listen for any leaks outside as well as inside. And I'm also monitoring the air pressure gauges for any loss in air pressure. All right, 1 minute has lapsed. All right, so my leakage test was successful. Next, I will go to my alarms test. So this tractor is equipped with a visible and an audible alarm. So I will fan the brake pedal continuously until, and the alarms should sound and illuminate no later than 60 psi. So I am ready to start the test. All right, the alarms illuminated and sounded no later than 60 psi. So the test was successful. All right, so now I'm ready to start my buttons test. In order to do so, I will fan the brakes continuously until the buttons pop out, which will happen no later than 20 psi. So I'm ready to start the test. All right, the buttons popped out no later than 20 psi, so the test was successful. Next, I will do another safe start to rebuild air pressure. Now that I have enough pressure, I will release the trailer air supply because this is a dual air system and I need to have a minimum of 100 psi in both of my air tanks for all of the brakes to release. All right, now that I have just over 100 psi in both air tanks. I have charged the system enough to release the brakes, so I will conclude my pre-trip inspection.